Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. Today we are looking at a Soviet battleship, because this is the Slava, a tier 10 premium version of the Kremlin, or so it seems, at least on top. Well, if you look at the origins of this thing, this is meant to be a ship of the Project 24 variant, which for all intents and purposes was an improvement over Project 23, which was the Sovietsky Soyuz. And the design for these ships has gone back and forth many times. Different designers have been handed this, but the Soviets had other priorities. Well, first of all, the Germans were causing some trouble. There were problems with production because they didn't have the facilities to build armor plating in sufficient thickness. So they had to work around that by sort of layering things and coming up with different ideas of how to do this. And eventually Stalin died and the whole project was mothballed. They were also set up to compete with a potential Montana-class battleship or with what the Soviets vastly overestimated the Iowas were capable of doing. But if they would have been built, they would have been very big ships. Now, Stalin himself wasn't a huge fan of the really big guns and kind of insisted on sticking with 406mm guns, which is what we're seeing here as the other variant, the Slava. So if we're comparing her to the Kremlin visually, yeah, it's the same ship, right? So on the surface, this goes with Wargaming's kind of trend of having premium variants with lower caliber guns or different caliber guns at a tier up, like the Jean Bart or like the Bourgogne, and this as a matter of distinction from the others. But let's start with comparing the Slava to the Kremlin, because that is the obviously logical thing. Now, you know that I'm not a huge fan of the Kremlin. I've pointed that out a couple of times, but we'll get to that in a minute. First of all, let's look at some numbers. So first thing that stands out, Slava does get the precise aim, but not quite as good as the Kremlin. Kremlin gets the precise aim 3 for 45% accuracy. The Slava gets the precise aim 2 for 35% accuracy. She also doesn't get the additional damage control kit, although I generally find myself relatively hard-pressed to actually make use of these. Additional heal is a different story, but an additional damage control, you have to come under some pretty hefty fire to be needing an extra one. In return, the Slava does get a defensive AA. It's only air defense alert 1, so it doesn't do an awful lot. It's 75% on both. But this is something that she gets, and obviously not the legendary equipment. If we're looking at the numbers, the Slava is noticeably, and this is the same whole visually, but is noticeably worse armored. So 15% citadel protection, 15% damage reduction is pretty average towards lower end when it comes to tier 10 battleships, and 59,000 hit points is also not an awful lot. But then again, something like the Montana has a 15% damage reduction as well, so it's not unheard of. Maneuverability wise, she's a big step up from the Kremlin, in that 15.6 second base turn time for a battleship at tier 10 isn't actually that terrible. Especially given that it's technically the same hull, although we're already seeing that this is not quite the case. The guns. Now this is where it gets really interesting. These are 406mm guns. But they are, and I could be wrong, but I was reasonably certain that I looked it up and they were supposed to be 60 caliber length. Maybe that was on the CIC website. I'm going to have to double check. But here they're described as 55 calibers in length, which is odd, because from what I remember looking up, could also have been on PC, these were 60 caliber length guns. But they reload quickly. There are only 9 of them, and 406mm at tier 10 on the surface looks underpowered. They are reloading reasonably quickly, and they have a very good base range of 15.5 kilometers. The damage output obviously isn't quite as good as you find on the 457 millimeters, at least the alpha damage. And they don't have the same citadel capability, and the turrets are dreadfully slow with 4.5 degrees per second. She does get the exact same secondaries that the Kremlin gets, the 130 millimeters, which are okay, but are not massively great. And she has better AA than the Kremlin, especially the small caliber AA, which is not to be underestimated, especially that this thing also gets the defensive AA skill. And the surface detection with 11.7 kilometers is pretty good. You could be tempted to go for a concealment build in this thing. So we have, and let's have a very quick look just how the guns compare to the Montana's guns, because the Montana is one of the other ships that has 406 millimeters. Obviously the Monty gets an extra turret and has slightly better AP damage, but reloads slightly faster. Other than that, they look relatively similar, although the base range on the Montana is shorter. Let's have a quick look at the Vermont in terms of AA, because that's kind of the other side. The Vermont has a better defensive AA skill. Obviously the guns are bigger because she gets the 457 millimeters, but still a shorter base range. And AA-wise, I would say probably a close shave. The Slava has slightly better range, and especially on the small caliber AA. And even though the def AA skill is worse, I think it's not a huge difference. So what we have here is a very different ship than the Kremlin. The Kremlin, from what it looks like, how it's intended to be played, is a sort of mid-range aggressive tank ship with the whole legendary module, with the relatively thick armor plating that she's getting, and all these things. The Slava is not. And when I started testing the Slava, I was in for a very, very rude awakening, because the first thing I was doing, I was like, okay, it's a Kremlin with 406 millimeter guns, bit less armor, like 3% less damage reduction. Okay, a bit less armor. The Slava gets absolutely massacred by battleships. I had a Vermont take half of my hit points off in one salvo. And that is because the Slava's armor is not quite what it seems. So if we look here at the damage reduction and citadel protection, it doesn't look out of the ordinary. But if you look at the hidden stats, so I've looked it up on the ever reliable CIC website, this thing's got 70 millimeters of deck plating. Just to put that into perspective, a Worcester, the tier 10 light cruiser, has 65 millimeter. This thing has worse armor than a Conqueror and a relatively low hit point pool. This ship has no armor. This is a battle cruiser at best. This thing has got the deck plating of a light cruiser. She gets completely obliterated by anything that shoots at her. In return, she has an extremely long range. And these guns, even though they are marked, I'm going to have to double check with a 60 caliber length. I was really sure I've seen it somewhere. But regardless, these guns are very, very punchy. And they have a very good penetration and an extremely long range. So this is a sniper. This is effectively a really, really big Moskva with bigger guns that hurt really badly. Now, I know that, and I've seen a lot of you saying this as well on Discord and in other places, there's some outlandish battles out there. There are people out there who've done 150, 180,000 points of damage with this thing. I am setting, not the way I'm setting this up, because I am, as usual, for a premium, or for a tier 10, I am setting this up with what I think most people probably are going to be experiencing. Not everybody has a legendary Soviet battleship commander with 12-point skills around. Because A, these are not easy to get, and B, getting up to 12-point skill takes a lot of work. So We are going to go with what I would say is a more traditional sort of setup. But one thing before we start looking at the setup, she also has an extremely good dispersion, and I think the best dispersion, the best base dispersion in tier 10 period. So let's begin with the elite bonus. You can get a traverse speed or firing range. I would thoroughly recommend to take firing range because you want to be at the back. This ship is not a battleship. This ship does not tank very well. The belt is sort of okay. It's not great, but I think it's 370 millimeter. That's kind of okay. The deck is very much not. So you want to give the enemy team something else to shoot at, and that's where the kind of firing range comes in nicely. Equipment. You can take the main battery mod 3. It's a 7% improvement. It's not massive, and she does get precise aim skills, so you can, but you've already not taken the 20% turret traverse on the elite bonus. I personally like to have the turrets at least be a little bit manageable in case I actually need to move, and that's why I'm using this module. Other than that, it's the same thing. You could sort of almost consider to do a stealth build and get it down to, I think it's like 10 point odd kilometers. It's not great, but for a tier 10 battleship is very good. So that would be something you could do as well. The historical camo, and I'm going to put that on because I'm assuming that if someone, I don't know what mechanism the Slava will come out, but if somebody is willing to spend the money that you would pay for a modern Xbox on this thing, then they're probably going to fork out the additional 6,000 gold to buy the historical camo. So extra hit points, extra range, better dispersion, and torpedo damage reduction. So that's what we're going to go with. And the commander, as usual, it's a tier 10 ship. I put a tier 10 commander in there. Yes, we will at some point take a look at a maxed build with premium consumables and a legendary commander with the APCS plus skill, and see what kind of mayhem we can get out of this. But for now, we're assuming that this would be the more normal experience. I'm getting myself an additional Def AA and the Air Defense Expert. That gives her a little bit of usability in terms of defending the line, similar to what the Vermont is doing. And you could take Fire Supremacy for an additional precise aim, or you could take Survivalist. I've gone with Survivalist here because this thing is squishy as heck. And obviously the Marksman skill, and obviously the Extinguisher. There's no great surprises here. And given that we don't have a rapid reload, you can either take compartment maintenance, or if you get flooded and don't have the damage control ready, or the Honor Seeker for an additional bit of additional damage. You could go with the close quarters, but these things don't have auto secondaries, and honestly, the secondaries are not that great. So, and yeah, these are Kookaburras outside, in case you were wondering. Yeah, these guys are noisy. But I'm using the Demolition Expert here instead. You would obviously want APCS, and I'm generally not recommending Citadel Strike because how many Citadels are you going to get? But if you pass the APCS, this might actually be a viable option. Or you try to get the deck armor a little bit improved and hope that you survive a bit longer. But if you're staying really, really in the rear and letting your team go ahead, then that might not be necessary. But these would be viable choices. All right, and here we are with our tier 10 premium battleship. So let's see this thing in action. In the first game, we are playing domination on neighbors against a confusingly named Haku, a Thunderer, a Großer Kurfürst, a Worcester, Chima, and Halland. And off we go. So, aircraft carrier battle. Not super scared of the carrier, but we can make ourselves useful, and just like you would in, say, a Vermont, and to give some AA cover to our team. We are spawning here on the left flank. I'm going to see where I'm going, kind of considering to either head with Shima and the Thunderer over there. But the right flank doesn't have any battleship support, and this is where the enemy carrier is going by the looks of it as well. So I might actually hang right. As you can see, the range on these guns is absolutely monstrous. I can already probably hit the enemy carrier almost from here. This, by the way, is something you can do if the friendly carrier spots the enemy carrier early on, especially if he goes into aggressive position. You can start sniping that thing in this ship because you've got a crazy range on these guns. So I'm already covering all 3 capture circles from here, and obviously there is a destroyer. Yep, there's the Holland, and there's a Worcester over there, but there's also a Großer Kurfürst. So at this range, I'm sort of okay to take on a GK, especially that he just fired. So precise aim up, shots out, and see what we can get done. There's also the Thundra, and don't necessarily. Have you just seen what these 406mm guns did to a Großer Kurfürst at this range? I mean, it's 12 kilometers. It's not 16 kilometers, but it's definitely, it can be pretty spectacular what you can do. You just have to be careful with the return fire. But for now, the Yamato is tanking for me, but he can't do that forever. That Großer Kurfürst is taking a lot of damage. He's just run into a bunch of torpedoes from the Shimakaze. And so far, I'm quite happy to be in this kind of central position here. There is a Worcester, however, coming around the right side, and that Yamato is running a little low, but I believe on hit points. It's difficult to see at this point, but he has taken a lot of damage, both from the Thundra and from the Kurfürst, and by the looks of it, now the Thundra is firing high explosive. And we are concentrating fire on the GK, but Yama is now running a bit low on hit points. So I'm going to poke out and try to at least divert a little bit of the incoming fire. There's a Mino fighting a Worcester. That's almost a fair fight, I would say. But he's extremely close to that Thundra, so once they have some ideas. I'm still trying to kill the GK there, but we should be able to take the heat of the... we've got Neptune here as well. And almost, he took one of his guns off, but almost taken him down. Well, he's relatively low on hit points at this stage. Remember that Großer Kurfürst and how much health he had left. And I'm on full health, of course. Thundra insta triple fire, no surprise there. That's why you fire high explosive with these things. Shots out at that thing. The shells are a little bit slower than I thought it was going to be, but a nice citadel on him. Just a bot destroyer, going to ignore him. Großer Kurfürst is healing up a little bit. So once I'm reloaded, then we're going to get another shot off at the Thundra. And I have to aim a little bit further back because otherwise I can't get past the island. And that was, I think, a shot from the GK that just hit me. Yeah, you noticed that. You noticed that very significantly because suddenly my ship was down to almost half hit points. There comes a salvo in, or it could have been the Thundra even. There comes a GK salvo in. Yep, that was just some glancing shots at the rear. But I'm at 40,000 hit points, and that thing is not having an awful lot of HP left. So let's see what we can do against the Großer Kurfürst. And we're obviously coming under air attack, and not an awful lot I can do. But I can definitely put the hurt back on. The problem is, so can the GK. And that's where it gets sketchy very quickly, because suddenly you don't have any hit points left. Ideally, I would be fighting this fight at long range, but I am trying to get the capture circle here, and hoping that I can get behind the island. Now the GK comes out. But I can do that to a Großer Kurfürst. And now he's back down to no hit points, but is healing again, and just trying to dodge the return fire. And we'll try to finish him off. That looks more like a premium heal, honestly. That's coming off there. There's a lot of hit points coming back. Let's see if we can get the rear turret swung around as well. And yeah, nope, there goes the rear turret. Very quickly, that hit point advantage that we had over the Großer Kurfürst is no longer there. So that gets sketchy very, very rapidly. Trying to hit the rear turrets there and the barbettes, but on the deck and the rear, ow, yeah, that was almost the end of it. And I started this fight with 45,000, almost 50,000 hit points, and the Großer Kurfürst was basically on no HP. But that should be the end of him now. He's out of heals. If it isn't, then I'm gonna run away because yeah, no, there it goes. Okay. A long range, very good. Anything else? No. You're basically a light cruiser waiting to happen. That Haku is dodging the Minotaur torpedoes, maybe? I think that was a Mino. Not quite sure, but he distracts the planes, and I can just murder the Haku in the meantime. Unless he's sending the planes my way, in which case I'm... no, Neptune, it was the Neptune. Neptune takes out the Haku. Haku takes out the Neptune, and I get to shoot some planes down. So this is all okay. But now there's only a Shimakaze left somewhere. We don't know where he is. I know I'm detected, but he could be anywhere. So I'm going to try and use that Yamato there as now I'm no longer detected, but that doesn't necessarily mean much. It'd be great if the carrier could go and spot the Shima. That'd be lovely, but what do you know? I have no idea where he is. But we've won anyway. We're 2-1. Even if I go down, then we've still got this game. There's only under a minute left, and Shima isn't going to be able to kill Yama and me. So, and I think even if he does, we've got... if he would have to kill both of us, I think, and that would have to be quite lucky. Okay, slow down, so Yama is blocking and can take the torpedoes if necessary. But yeah, this game's over, so we've definitely won this one. There are some fighters that I'm just going to go and shoot down, and we'll speed up again and see if we can shake off that Shima for the last 20 seconds. Yeah, you really don't want to poke your nose out. Oh, there come the Shima torpedoes. Okay, I'm dead. But it's not gonna. He's actually in the cup here. It's not gonna be enough. Yama actually dodged him. I'm gonna die now to Shima torps, but that's okay. It's still enough to win the game. That's what I was saying earlier. You need to absolutely keep your distance and make use of your range, because my gosh, this ship has terrible armor. But at long range, she is exceedingly dangerous. And remember, this is all without the armor-piercing cap shell. This is what the 406 are doing standard. So, not terrible, as long as you remember the basic rules. In round 2, it's another carrier battle, and we're fighting Midway, Vermont, Alsace, Minotaur, and 3 destroyers. Halland, Shima, and Daring, excuse me. Alright, off we go. Domination on Cage. I like domination maps. Even though this is not the ship that you necessarily want to go and cup in, but on Cage, due to the spawn, we can relatively safely cup C, and then camp C, and cover A and B with our gun range, because our gun range is glorious. And we've got an Elbing here, which might be quite useful if against the other destroyers. So I'll carefully head towards C Cup. We'll see where the planes are going. Black Shimakaze is here as well, so let's head forward a little bit. And Shima smokes up actually, which isn't stupid, because if he's carrier spotted, then he can avoid the initial assault. I'm trying to get a little closer. There's a Halland, but I think Shima smoked up a little too late. Oh no, it's the Elbing that gets hit. Okay, should have stayed in smoke. So Elbing comes under air attack. Unfortunately, I'm a little too far away to do an awful lot about it, but we do have ourselves an Alsace to shoot at. And precise aim up and shots out. There's also Vermont. There's a Minotaur, which the destroyers are not going to be super happy about, but this is something I can work with if necessary. And other than that, we'll just position back here and shoot at things from long range. Not because I necessarily want to play that way. I don't like playing that way, actually. I like to be more useful to my team and assist with control of things, but as you can see, 16.79 kilometers mean I can actually hit the Midway from over here. But there's a Mino, and a fully broadsiding Mino at that. I'm not sure if he went AFK or if he's actually moving. He is coming under carrier attack, and I'm going to help a little here as well. Yeah, you do not want to be sitting there. He probably went AFK, but unfortunately that means the Midway is now getting out of range, because he has realized that he is spotted and that he's actually coming in range. We are only controlling one of the capture circles, which is a little unfortunate, but there's not an awful lot we can do about it. We've got the other battleship here, and that's a Montana. He probably also does not necessarily want to be too close to everything, especially with the Vermont out there. So we're kind of the firing position here, and it's up to the cruisers and destroyers to do something useful. And of course, our cruisers and destroyers are bumbling about somewhere in the north of the map. Sorry, the cruiser is. The destroyers are doing their level best to try and get the capture circle. We're pressuring the midway a little. I'm not sure I can get that shot on target still, but we'll try. Pressuring the midway a little bit and preserving our hit points. Yep. And again, this is without the APCS. It's Citadel City with this thing. So we're focusing fire on the midway and it's trying to get him out of the picture. And hopefully giving our destroyers some breathing room that they're not coming under air attack. I'm going to let the Montana take that because he's got pretty good AA as well. And there goes the midway. Yeah, you got to position your carrier a bit carefully when this thing is around because 16-kilometer range. So we're still not holding more than one capture circle, but I might be able to get the hit on the Vermont over there. Let's see if we can get the kill on that one as well, if he floods out first. We actually appear to have missed. I'm not sure how, but okay, someone else can kill the Vermont. I'm switching to the high explosive because, of course, the 3 destroyers are still around, and our cruiser is, well, safely out of... okay, Monty takes him out safely out of... Now the destroyer is hiding, and I've got the HE loaded against the Alsace, so back to AP, and full on reverse, because there's a Shimakaze. And Shima coming out broadside means he has dropped his torpedoes. Yep, that's why I've been reversing. Don't need no hydro for that. And... see if we can get a good hit in on the Alsace. That thing is not too well armored as well, so shots out back to the high explosive. Shima just fired his torpedo. Oh, that was disappointing. Must have hit the belt from here. Should have manually aimed, obviously. So just in case the daring gets any funny ideas, I'm going to go behind the ledge here. Obviously double insta-fire from whatever was shooting at me here, but let's see if we can get some shots off at the daring. And get that thing blown out of the water. Yep, there he goes. Very good high explosive on these things. And we're safe here behind the island of any eventual daring torpedoes. That leaves the Shima and the Holland. And the cruiser has seen... Our carrier has figured out that he's been left alone for too long over there. So attempt... where's he going? Where are you going, Shima? Is he turning? Not sure. Let's... lead it a little bit, and we're going forwards again because, you know, Shima torpedoes. But I think no, we're not actually. This isn't actually game yet because we've been only holding 2 of the capture circles for so long. So let's and Shima obviously takes the cap here, but I have another. Oh, yeah, quick dodge attempt here. So it's a little bit too far to the rear. But someone else can finish him off, I think. He's on such low hit points. If I get a reload off before he dies, then I can take him. But there come the Shima torps. Not aimed at me, which is much appreciated. So yeah, this is a ship that... This is an excellent ship. So let me just put it that way, immediately. This is an excellent ship, but it is a ship with a very singular playstyle. So in order to make the ship successful, you have to stay at long range. But if you stay at long range... These guns, they don't look it, but these guns are very, very murderous. And I think that Holland just found all the torpedoes. Yeah, Shima took him out. A couple of torps here coming in. I can take that. Yeah, you do not have the armor at all to do anything with. You do not necessarily do things like support the baseline or the battleship line. You do not go into a tanking position with this thing. You do absolutely not poke your nose out because this is here tier 10 and there are a lot of really, really big guns and you have no armor. Effectively play this like a battle cruiser, like a lightly armored battle cruiser. That's probably the best way to look at it. But it's all about the guns. So like you would play a Moskva, long range, precise ship, hits hard, and if you stick to that, and if your team allows you to do that, and the enemy team allows you to get away with it, absolutely monstrous ship. So if you're at the receiving end of one, be careful. And I could imagine these becoming somewhat of a priority target for people early on if they if they get into range of it. But if played well, very, very dangerous ship. If you find that your team refuses to cap, not an awful lot you can do about it. So that's it. That's the Slava, the tier 10 premium Kremlin, with guns that I personally like a lot better than the Kremlin's. And without the Kremlin's troll dispersion as well. So that's it for today. Thanks everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.